Today's episode is with my birthday twin, Robert, who is a
Robert Sikes, ketogenic
Yep.
natural bodybuilder. We talked about the ketogenic diet, meat eating, and hunting. And bodybuilding.
Yep.
Mindset, body, muscle.
So you guys go check this episode out. Enjoy it, tune in, and peace. Year 2.
Episode 708 of 308 of 82 the show. Traveling around the world. This is our first guest in Arkansas.
Arkansas. You almost said Arkansas. You almost said Arkansas there. Almost. But yeah, it's been a year, and it's good to have a guest that's into fitness as our first episode after one whole year of filming, right? It's pretty crazy. Sure. It's pretty cool. Robert, let the world know who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. First of all, I'm super excited to be here. I've been natural bodybuilding since I was a junior in high school. Started at 115 pounds. I was just tiny. And I started doing the ketogenic diet in 2015 after I had struggled with a bunch of eating disorders with the traditional dieting protocol. And I kind of made a name for myself in the ketogenic space with regards to natural bodybuilding. Got my pro card in 2017. And I've since basically built a business around content and a product around living a ketogenic lifestyle. So that's pretty much where I come in with regard to the health and nutrition.
Hey, that's awesome. Hey, congrats. You were able to do your thing.
Right out the bat, I want to ask, how did you fall into an eating disorder, if you don't mind me asking, and what is an eating disorder?
Yeah. So it manifests itself very differently for different people. For me personally, it happened after my very first bodybuilding competition. This was before I ran into keto. I was doing traditional bro diet approach to bodybuilding. I was eating every 2 or 3 hours, chicken and rice kind of diet. And I bulked up prior to that competition. I got to 230 pounds from the 115 that I started at. I got to 230 pounds, and then I had to cut down for that show to come in, conditioned. And I lost about 80 pounds in 12 weeks with that very strict diet. And after that show was over, I won the show, but after that show was over, I basically just started binge eating because I had deprived myself of food for so long. And then I put on 20 pounds in like 24 hours. And that basically kicked off the downward spiral of having a terrible relationship with food. I'd binge, and then I'd feel guilty for binging, so I'd purge, and then I wouldn't eat for days. And it just became a very chaotic cycle that lasted for 2 or 3, maybe 4 years until I kind of stumbled onto keto.
See, this is why I like to remain fat, but it's because people, it's not just you, but there are a lot of people, they get too obsessed with keeping their heads in the game, trying to win competition, and they do the most outrageous things you could think of. Not to say that what you did was outrageous, but other people did stuff that's crazy. I've heard of people like genuinely ingesting tapeworms just to lose a lot of weight, and then having to, like, as soon as they reach their target weight, they take like these anti-parasitic drugs, and then they literally have to pull out the tapeworm.
I've never heard of that, to be honest.
You've never heard of the tapeworm diet?
I feel like that's is that a thing, Robert? Can you confirm?
I've heard of jockeys, like horse jockeys, doing that because they have to maintain a certain weight to be able to be competitive on horseback. So I've heard of jockeys doing that. I haven't heard of bodybuilders doing that because you probably lose a lot of muscle. But yes, it's a slippery slope when you go that far.
It is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, thank you for being open about obviously what you went through. You want to tell us a bit more about the habits that you were in, and then how did you knock yourself off that like downward spiral?
The habits were bad because it's like when you're stuck in a disordered eating cycle, it's weird because you lose touch with what satiety feels like. You lose touch with what hunger feels like. You have this mentality around food that is not a natural phenomenon. It's more psychological than it is physiological. And with that, like when you don't know when you're hungry and you don't know when you're full, you can just eat and eat and eat. I mean, I remember one time walking into an IHOP restaurant and I literally got one of every single thing on the menu and I ate it all. I mean, that shouldn't be humanly possible, but I did it. Like your hormones are all jacked up, your psychological relationship with food is all jacked up, and you go beyond what feels like it should happen. And then you feel guilty because afterwards you're like, wow, there's no reason my body needs 30,000 calories of food. I should probably puke all that up. So you do that, and then it just becomes this negative feedback loop. And it just keeps getting triggered on by like your own personal self-image and, you know, how you view yourself, what you view your confidence like, what you view your discipline like. And after I'd worked so hard for that first show and saw that progress and success with it, I felt weak mentally and physically because I couldn't gain control over my relationship with food at that point. So I started beating myself up from just a lack of discipline standpoint. And then what worked for me to break free of that was going into a ketogenic diet, which seemed to just help stabilize things. Like I knew I was eating only high quality foods. And because of that, I knew that it was nourishing my body truly, as opposed to just eating a ton of crap foods that I knew inherently weren't benefiting me. So once I did that, I feel like my hormones stabilized as well. And I was able to just get everything back in check.
Interesting.
Right. Awesome. So before we move on to this, I want to know, do you have any like advice for people who are going through like a binge eating disorder type situation? Just in general, I know for you, keto worked the best. Do you recommend keto to everyone? Or I
recommend everybody try keto, because I feel like if you give it an honest, you know, couple of months to truly become fat adapted and keto adapted, you may find that it works really well for you. I'm not saying that's the best diet for everyone, but I think everyone owes it to themselves to try it. But as far as just a good way to break free of disordered eating habits, I feel like not trying to make up for the prior day's mistakes. I think that's where a lot of people mess up, is they binge one day and they try to correct course by not eating at all the next day. Simply breaking free of that cycle and starting fresh the next day and only eating foods that you know are inherently good for you. I would rather have somebody eat in excess, but it only come from good quality foods, than them eat very poor quality food choices and then feel guilty and all the negative repercussions that come with that.
Right. So it's about the quality of food more than the quantity of food, right? If you're eating good quality food, you can eat as much as you want, and that's better. Was the problem with you that you were eating bad quality food in excess?
Yeah. When I was really struggling with this, was before keto. It was just like, right. I mean, I would eat all kinds of crap food. Like I wouldn't allow myself to walk into the bakery out of the grocery store, because I knew that if I did, it was game over. You know, so I had to avoid it. But,
why is bread so bad? Why is bread so bad? Why is pizza so bad, Robert?
I couldn't moderate it, man. Like I had that like a sugar addiction. Like it can absolutely be a thing for some people, and I couldn't moderate it. So some people can moderate it. Some people should probably be better off just eliminating it. So by eliminating it, it removed that variable from the equation entirely. So when I went keto and removed that, it was much easier to get things back in check.
Nice.
What scares me about keto diet is the amount of stuff you are allowed to eat opposed to the amount of stuff you aren't. You know what I mean? Like I had a friend.
I guess now's the time to share.
Right? I have a friend who did do keto, and he lost a lot of weight and got in shape like extremely fast. It was very scary. But like, what is keto diet, and what are you allowed to eat?
Why is it scary? That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Why is it scary if you get shredded and get in a good shape from eating healthy food?
Because like every time we want to go out, I'll tell you what, every time we want to go out for lunch or dinner or food, it's like, oh, I need to check the restaurant's menu if it's keto friendly. In the States, that's fine. You have that everywhere. In Arabia, half the shit is not even half, like 70% of the stuff we eat is not keto friendly. So going out for lunch with that person was the hardest, especially since he was the one who would always organize everything. All of a sudden, he's gone keto, right? So
what do you mean? So what did he? You want to tell me? Sorry, your example. What did he eat? Like that's different. I feel like you go to a restaurant, you just like chicken and meat.
I'll tell you. So, and if we went to a burger place, right? Our burger places are standard here, right? It's buns, patty, cheese. Right? Already. That's like 3 out of 4 he can't have, which is, I believe,
can't you remove the bread from the
but like he's not gonna go to a restaurant, pay a full price, and then just rearrange the whole. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make sense. So to him, the only time he'd come with us if we went to a steakhouse. But even then, he has to be.
That sounds good to me, man.
But I don't like steaks. See, that's where things kind of conflict, and it's hard. It is hard. So,
all right, I really Robert, do you want to give us? Yeah, do you want to give us an accurate description of what the keto diet is and how you can adapt it?
Well, it's funny because like in the keto space right now, there's all this diverse division around how people define keto. It's changed drastically over the past few years, which is interesting to me. But I would define keto as simply a dietary lifestyle in which the foods you consume are there to optimize your body's ability to run and function efficiently and optimally around ketone bodies and fat, both dietary fat and stored body fat. So when you are structuring your diet around that underlying philosophy, you become keto adapted. You start producing ketones. Ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier, whereas most fats can't, or no fats really can. But ketones can, sugar can as well. But your body can produce all of the glucose it needs for your brain to function endogenously through a process called gluconeogenesis. So your body can turn proteins into enough glucose necessary for your brain to function. So carbohydrates, dietary carbohydrates, are not even necessary. They're not required by the body. I haven't eaten a meal with dietary carbohydrates for 6 years now. So a lot of people, they'll go carnivore and remove greens even. They'll just eat meats. So yeah, it sounds very limiting for a lot of people that are used to being able to go to a restaurant and order anything on the menu. You kind of have to start looking at what is on the menu. Like if there's a bunch of carbs or breads or sugars, that's not really going to be conducive to allowing your body to become as efficient at burning fat and ketones as possible. But once you get the hang of it, you can recognize what ingredients are a yay or nay, and then kind of work around those. And then at restaurants, at least here in the States, there's quite a few options there. But I can make any restaurant keto friendly by removing certain foods from the plate. Burgers, I take the buns off for sure. Steakhouses obviously are a pretty good option. Now some of the mixed dishes like the soups and like things like that are a little bit tricky because you sometimes don't know what the ingredients are. But oftentimes I just stick with preparing my own foods. I don't really go out to eat too often much personally.
And what are fundamental things that you do have to stay away from when you're doing a keto diet?
To optimize,
like in a restaurant, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I try and stay away from like all of the flours, the carbohydrates, the breads, the sugars, a lot of the sweeteners. And if you want to take it to another step further, the types of fats matter quite a bit. So a lot of like animal-based fats are pretty healthy and bioavailable for our body to break down and use as energy. A lot of the vegetable oil fats are very oxidative and can be very inflammatory. So you don't want to consume a lot of vegetable oils, canola oils, soybean oils, things like that. And those are much, much cheaper to cook foods with. So a lot of restaurants will try and save a buck by using vegetable oils in their preparation. And that's certainly not optimal. Like you don't want to be obsessive about it. I mean, a little bit of vegetable oil is not going to kill you, but I try and avoid that for sure.
Well, so do you eat any greens yourself, or are you full carnivore?
No, I do eat greens. They're not a staple in my diet. I don't eat a ton of greens. I mean, there'll be times where I won't eat greens, but if I'm craving a big salad, then I'll eat a big salad and not feel bad about it.
So if you eat like fruits, that would kick you out of this ketogenic state that you're in, like fruits. Are those still? Can you still eat those? Yeah.
Everybody has a threshold, like a personal threshold, as to how many carbs their body's able to metabolize without breaking out of ketosis. Generally speaking, if you have more physical activity throughout the day, if you have more lean muscle tissue, if you're more fat adapted and kind of switch back and forth, so to speak, then you can tolerate a higher amount of carbohydrates and sugars. I personally try and stay away from those because they're not really adding any inherent benefit to my performance throughout the day. So I don't really eat any fruits. I mean, fruits really and truly, they've been genetically modified over several hundred years. They're more like candy now than they are like legitimate fruit. Like if you look at a banana from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, it looks nothing like the bananas of today. So it's basically just fancy candy that's been advertised as healthy.
What? Come on. Hey, I gotta push back on that, Robert. I gotta push back a little bit because I love fruits. I love vegetables. I love making a smoothie with fruits and vegetables. It gives me a lot of great nutrients, and I think it's generally healthy to eat fruits and vegetables.
I would expect some pushback for sure, because we've always been told that fruits and vegetables are what the bulk of your diet should be. However, you don't need the fruits. And if you look at fruits and vegetables, for instance, are typically marketed to be very, very high in vitamins and minerals. If you look at something like beef liver, for instance, especially beef liver sourced from a high quality grass-fed, grass-finished cow, there are more vitamins and nutrients in just a small sliver of that beef liver than there is in any of the superfoods within the vegetable and fruit families. So you can get a lot of that stuff from meat and fruit. I mean, fruit is mostly fructose, and fructose is processed completely by the liver, and too much of that can be very toxic as well. People can have too much fruit. Too much fructose it can be taxing on the liver.
Yeah, but too much meat is also dangerous.
Is it?
Is
it?
It is.
Is it?
It is.
Well,
take it from a med student right here. I'll tell you.
From Robert.
Right? I mean, we study this. This is all part of the GIT, right? So too much meat can be dangerous as well. It can cause a lot of diseases in a human being, especially a lot of animal fat can cause things like hypertension and increase in cholesterol. Unless you eat lean meat all the time, like I'm talking 0% fat in your meat, right? That's the only case where you can avoid these different things. But with fruits, it's like, why would I go eat a beef liver, right? Or what? It's when I can just get it from a fruit, right? It's literally like, it's all about making food easier.
Those medical and scientific studies that indicate meat is unhealthy are based off a population size that only eats meat. Those are all looking at people that eat meat and a pretty good amount of carbohydrates.
All right, so I'll argue back to that. There's a difference between people who study biostatistics and people who study what the chemical reaction that happened in the body because of a certain chemical that's found in fat.
You're talking about cholesterol?
Like it's not about population and size. It's just about a human body with enzymes and different like juices and all that stuff inside reacting to different foods. It's not.
So you brought up cholesterol, for example, right?
Yeah, most of the studies that show like a carcinogenic effect of meat, for instance, are looking at meat that's been really overly cooked. And I will agree with you there. Like if you're overcooked meat and there's a bunch of char on there, and that's the bulk of the type of meat you're consuming, that does have some oxidative properties for sure. But there's not really any studies that look at, meat that's not overcooked and show any carcinogenic effect in isolation.
So is that why we take our meat medium or medium well?
Yeah. You're gonna preserve more nutrients with medium rare, and I mean when you like char a bunch of meat, you're cooking a lot of the nutrients out of it, and if it's truly charred, I mean that can be carcinogenic for sure.
All right.
It also tastes better when it's like medium.
I agree.
Me too. I like the medium rare. So you said that the ketogenic molecule can cross the blood-brain barrier. What did you mean by that, and how does that affect you?
So like when you look at how your body is fueled, how it metabolizes nutrients to fuel your body and your brain, the body and the brain need a certain amount of glucose to function. For instance, when you are eating carbohydrates, your body is metabolizing those carbs for glucose, and that's where you're getting your energy from. When you become ketogenic and fat adapted, your body's not really using carbohydrates for the primary fuel source anymore. It's using fat and ketone molecules. Fat can't cross the blood-brain barrier, but ketones can. So you can get some mental cognitive benefits from the ketones, and then any of the glucose that your brain does need can be processed endogenously from proteins and things of that nature through gluconeogenesis.
What are the benefits of the mental benefits you're talking about?
So a lot of people that eat a lot of carbs and sugars, for instance, they'll notice a blood insulin spike after they have a big meal. Then they'll notice a corresponding dip in energy
and sleepiness.
They'll have that sleepiness. That is totally negated on most people following a fat adapted approach because you're not getting near the swings in blood insulin. You're having a much more stable supply of energy and fuel. So like, for instance, I'll oftentimes only eat once or twice a day, and I never have massive shifts in energy levels, both physically or mental cognition levels, because I'm just getting a steady stream of energy endogenously through the fat that my body's burning or through the dietary fat that I'm consuming during my meals.
So you mentioned something called gluconeogenesis or something like that. Can you explain what exactly is that process? And can you explain that?
Yeah, so gluconeogenesis is simply the body creating glucose endogenously. So it's like if you look at the Krebs cycle, you look at how things are metabolized in the body. If you're consuming protein, for instance, amino acids in the protein can be turned into glucose through that process of gluconeogenesis. Oh, wow. So if you're not consuming carbohydrates, think of it like a human evolutionary adaptation for how we can survive in times of scarcity when there is no food. If there is no carbs to consume, how do we not die? And basically, the answer is gluconeogenesis. It can break down our own stored muscle tissue, like the lean mass on our body, to create enough glucose internally to fuel our brain. and just bodily functions, or it can also do the same thing with dietary protein that we consume.
Okay.
All right. I do want to bring up something. So I do care about my health, obviously, and I do want to eat things that are good for my body, but I have been eating less meat because of the environment and because of humanitarian reasons, because the way meat is being produced right now isn't good for the environment or for the animals. So what are your thoughts on like meat alternatives? And what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
Yeah, so I am totally in support of doing what is best for the environment. Like I am passionate about that. I'm an advocate for that. I do not like how mass scale commercially raised beef or put in a feedlot and slaughtered, and I don't like how that process is done. It's not a good process. On the same token, I don't think the solution is massive scale monocropped agriculture plots for like soy fields, for instance, in which a pretty good supply of animals are also displaced and killed. And the bioavailability of like a vegan burger, for instance, is not near as bioavailable as a legitimate burger. So there's that to take into consideration. As far as the ethical standpoint goes and what is best for the planet, there has been pretty stout research done on regenerative farming and regenerative agriculture. So basically cycling the animals over enough grassland that everything kind of works in a symbiotic fashion, and it actually has been proven to have a net positive carbon effect. So that it's not contributing to the carbon in the atmosphere, it's taking away from. So I'm on par with that. I appreciate that. I'm also an avid hunter. So a lot of the food that I consume has been food that I have harvested myself. And animals are wild animals that I hunt humanely. Fair game, yeah. The nutrient density of a wild game is oftentimes much, much more superior to that of one that are not wild. And, like it's a well-placed ethical shots. Like they don't suffer. They're living wild and free until the moment I put them down and then consume
they're not. until they're not,
right? But, Robert, I love that lifestyle, and I do agree that maybe it would be better for me to move out of Los Angeles and get into a place where I can.
Eddie, can't you just eat halal
more
meat?
Sustainable life.
That was
I'm sure halal meat. Do you know what that is, Robert? It's like
ethical killing of an animal in the most humane way possible, just so that the meat is purified and all that stuff. It's like there's a spiritual aspect and then there's a scientific aspect. So I'll hit you with the scientific aspect because I think that's gonna please you more. So you know how you said it's fair game and the meat tastes much better when you hunt for it than when you buy it off the store? That's because cholesterol is a bitch, and cholesterol is what happens to animals and humans when we go under stress, right? So if I was to grab a knife and come walking towards you, right, cholesterol is gonna increase. It ruins the taste of the meat. So the halal process of meat or of obtaining meat from animal is basically you remove the animal you wish to eat away from the herd, right? So that they don't see what's about to happen to it, or he or she or it, or whatever you want to call it, right? The animals should not see the knife at all. Like it's a no-go. The knife is run from, again, to our viewers who are pro-vegan and all that bullshit, this is not an episode for you, obviously, but you've been warned, click off now. I'm about to describe what happens. They drag the knife through the jugular veins and the whole jugular area, cutting the nerves, blood supply, and everything, so that the animal, dies just like that.
Right.
Instead of just.
So it's a more humane way of killing animals, and I guess that you are right, Ali. Maybe if I do get meat, I should try to find places that provide that.
Halal, because there's a lot in New York. I know that for a fact. So I'm sure there is in Los Angeles too.
Ali, you should probably move to Michigan.
All right.
It definitely work out for you there.
All right, Robert. This is
doing the humane hunters. To the people that don't know much about hunting, hunters oftentimes get a bad rap. It's like, oh, they're just going out there and they're killing poor innocent Bambi. But most hunters, I mean, there are definitely some bad hunters out there, don't get me wrong. But most hunters are some of the most devout conservationists. Like they care. They have they're in close relationship with the local biologist to manage the population herds, make sure they have the proper herds. They thin those herds properly to make that herd optimally healthy based off of the supply of nutrients it has at its exposure. I mean, that is something that I'm very passionate about. Conservation, animal wildlife conservation, and doing what is right by the animals is super, super important.
I have a question. Why do people like to give hunters a bad rep for using rifles instead of bow and arrows? That's something I've actually heard, and I'm genuinely confused as to why. Right? Like, why should I go with a bow and arrow when, a gun is easier for me and the animal? Because like, what if I miss with the bow and arrow and I hit the animal in its butt? That's painful, right? Like, so what's the whole story behind that? What's going on there?
So a lot of people, I mean, I hunt both with a rifle and with a bow, and there's a lot more work involved in putting a well-placed shot on an animal with a bow. Like you have to put in hours of work as a bow hunter to put a well-placed arrow in the kill zone and minimize any risk of suffering. So it requires a lot of effort. Hunting with a gun is much, much easier in comparison. So a lot of people give, gun hunters a bad rep. A lot of bow hunters give gun hunters a bad rep because it's more simple. A well-placed shot with an arrow can be equally as effective as a well-placed shot with a gun. With an arrow, it's more a matter of hemorrhaging. Like that arrow passes through so sharp and so fast that the animal oftentimes does not even feel the arrow pass through. Like they'll oftentimes take a shot, if it's a well-placed shot with an arrow, it'll sever all the arteries in the heart, and then that animal, because it's so sharp and so fast, will not even feel that arrow pass through. They'll take a few steps and look around because they hear something, and then all of a sudden they'll just drop down from hemorrhaging because of lack of blood to the brain.
Interesting. So are you pro arrow or pro gun, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm pro both, as long as you put in the work to feel confident in your shot. I mean, either way, if you put in the work and you feel confident in your shot, then you're doing it right.
What do you hunt, by the way?
I hunt just about everything. A lot of deer in Arkansas. There's not any big game in Arkansas. Like all the moose and elk and everything is up farther in the northwest. But a lot of deer in Arkansas. Right.
And what does deer meat taste like? Because I've never had it. I've had camel meat. I've had sheep meat, but deer. It's very interesting.
I don't know. What does camel taste like? How would you describe camel?
That's a good question. It's tougher. That's definitely it's tougher than cow meat or mutton meat. That's for sure. But like in terms of taste, it's a little bitter. It's more on the bitter side of things, so it's harder to cook. So
kind of like lamb almost.
Lamb is softer if cooked right. Right? Like there's a specific way you gotta cook it. Especially with like camel meat is tougher to cook. Like it's harder to cook, but when done right, tastes really good. A little bit bitter, but really good. That's my description of camel meat. What about deer meat? Like try your best.
Deer is very lean, so it's very easy to overcook. Something that's got more fat and marbling from that fat, like beef, for instance. When that gelatin breaks down, when that collagen breaks down in the muscle tissue, that's where you kind of get that texture that's softer and more pleasurable mouthfeel. Deer is super, super lean. So if you overcook deer, it becomes very, very tough as well. But if you do like a marinade and then like a quick sear, it's pretty good. I like it.
Interesting. Hey, who knows? Maybe one day you'll try camel and I'll try deer meat, and we can.
All right.
Something I wanted to ask about was if you could elaborate about. So you said how passionate you are about hunting. I wanted to know what is the emotions that go behind it?
It's just it completes the circle of life. I mean, honestly, like when you work very hard to put a well-placed shot on an animal that you have spent potentially, weeks, months, years tracking, patterning, figuring out where their feed supply is, what their movements are, and then stalking within range to put that well placed, especially if you're hunting with a bow. Like you have to be much, much closer. So being patient and disciplined in how to stalk an animal and get that close to put a well placed shot on it. And then like seeing that animal go down, knowing that there's been no suffering involved, and then processing that animal yourself. I do all my own processing too. So I'll make sure like I clean the animal, I process the animal, I cook the animal. Like it's full circle for me. And when you do that, when you take the life of something and then that food nourishes your body, your appreciation for life is amplified. So that's pretty much my take on hunting and why I'm so passionate about it.
I agree so much with you on everything you just said right there, because it's true.
It's about humanity also. I do agree in like the circle of life, and we just need to bring more humanity and like at least being closer to the animal when you're killing it, as opposed to just getting it from the grocery store.
Yeah, and that's another reason people, there's a disconnect between gun hunters and bow hunters. Like when you're shooting a gun, I mean, you can be 200 yards away and not see the detail of that animal and put a shot on there. When you're at a bow range, 40 yards away, like you experience the emotions that animal is having before you place that shot on them. I mean, your appreciation for that life is heightened.
Mm-hmm. It seems like you're really close with nature. And I want to ask you about your bodybuilding. You said you're a natural bodybuilder. Have you ever thought about being an unnatural bodybuilder, taking steroids and whatnot? Has that ever crossed you?
Common. Yeah, like they're probably, I wouldn't say there's more bodybuilders that are taking stuff than not, but it is incredibly common. It's in most things out there. And it's, for me, it's like I've always wanted to improve my longevity, not just, how I look in the short term. That's why I do keto as well. I feel like it's better from a longevity standpoint. And for me, it's like I want to see what my body's capable of in as natural an environment as possible. And I would never be able to know that with any degree of certainty if I'm taking a bunch of performance enhancing drugs. And I just don't like I don't like introducing all of the chemistry into what I feel should be a very natural process. So yeah, I've always kept it natural. There's probably some temptation in the very beginning, but I saw quite a bit of success with my bodybuilding career early on. And since I was seeing success and since I was continually getting better year after year, I didn't feel like I needed to take the steroids in order to be successful in the sport. All
right. So how do you become successful in the sport of bodybuilding?
It's all about discipline and consistency, man. Like everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but doesn't anybody want to put the discipline and the consistency that it requires? Yeah,
that would be me. That would be me.
And I mean, it's tough. I mean, you gotta. You're not always going to be motivated to wake up early and go to the gym or hit your macros and plan your meals accordingly. Like you got to put in that work, even when you don't want to put in that work. I mean, it's with like anything in life that requires time and playing the long game. But I've fallen in love with it. Like my personality is very well suited for it because I'm so stubborn, I think is probably the reason. I like doing things for 20 years that people would never want to do. Like I get excited when I hear something's going to take 10 years to see progress from. Like that makes me excited. And bodybuilding is that way for sure.
How did you never play World of Warcraft? I don't understand. That's what it sounds like right now. It's like a long time before you actually get to play the damn game, right?
Yeah. Never played it.
Shit. Who knows? You might
do you play any video games? Or like watch movies or
played, Mario Kart on Nintendo 64. I think that's probably the only thing I've ever
played. That's a long time ago. So not a gamer guy, a lifting bro.
You know what?
Yeah.
It's fine. So what motivates you to get out of the bed because I'm the kind of guy who gets up like 4:30 a.m. I'm at the gym by like 5:15 and I'm there for an hour, then I'm back home and I crash and I sleep, right? But that's because it became a routine for me to just wake up at that time, go to the gym, come back home and sleep. But is it more of a motivation for you to wake up and go, or is it more of a routine like me?
At this point, it's definitely more of a routine. I mean, currently I'm waking up at 3:00 in the morning. I'll read for a little bit and then I'll do some creative work. I get a lot of my business work done early in the morning, and I typically go to the gym, which is at our warehouse here where I'm working currently. So that's kind of nice having it in-house. And then I'll work out normally around 6:00 in the morning for an hour and a half or so. And then the day starts. But I get so much of my creative work done, my productive work done before anybody else wakes up, which is nice because I'm not constantly inundated by emails and text messages and pings, and I'm just able to focus.
What's with waking up so early in the morning and working out and doing everything in the morning? Why can't it be also at night? Is there like a chemical thing or biological thing or something like that, or is it just motivation?
It's funny because there's been studies that there's been some studies that say people that wake up earlier are more productive. I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like at some point it's more so personal preference. Like people that perform really well at night and that's where they're most productive, I say, more power to them. Do what you want to do. I just know for me personally, I'm much more productive in the morning. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I have no shame in saying that I go to bed at 8 p.m. Like that's pretty early for most people.
For me personally, it's because the gym is emptier at like 4 in the morning. So I'd like to go when it's empty and no one's there. That's my answer to you. Say it's just emptier. And it's easier to go to an empty gym than a packed gym because it's like,
all right,
it's easy.
Yeah, but
I get demotivated. I'll be very honest. When I see someone that's walking around like this and I'm in this body, I'm just like, why am I even here? Like this guy already won and he's still here. I don't know, man. What am I doing here? You know what I mean? I do get demotivated.
Genetics. I will disagree. I'll motivate you. Some of those guys are genetically just much bigger and much stronger. Of course, there are people who put in the work and stuff. But if you put in the effort and you put in the motivation, you're a pretty tall guy. And you can get pretty jacked and you can beat those guys at the gym if you put in the effort to do it.
I've been told that a lot. Starting to
I mean, like
we motivate each other.
15 pounds when I started, man. I mean, I was tiny.
Dude, I was 140. Let me find out how much that is in pounds. 145 kg.
That's like 280.
270. Yes.
Robert, you can convert this. Come on,
320 pounds.
And what do you?
Now I am 120. Motherfucker. I'm now 264.
Nice. That's pretty nice. That's very good, dude.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'4", I believe, 193 centimeters, so almost 2 meters tall. So I'd say 6'4".
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I'm a whopping 5'7.5", so you got me beat on the height for sure.
How does Ali get swole?
Yeah, how do I do it? How should I do it? Should I work more on my diet, which I don't want to, or should I work more on the gym, which I still don't want to?
I used to think that it was all gym and not so much diet. And then now that I've been in the nutrition space for as long as I have and seen how things are impacted so profoundly by a diet is a massive part of it for sure. But I try not to view things through like a certain percentage diet, a certain percentage is training, like simply focusing on both and really trying to optimize both. Like once you reach that goal, my personal philosophy towards goals in general is be as efficient and sustainable as you can in reaching that goal. And once that goal is reached, reevaluate. Like if at that point you decide, okay, I want to take a little, slack off a little bit from my diet, then you've already reached that goal and you can maintain that much, much easier than you can get to that point. So I always, encourage people to prioritize efficiency in reaching the goal and then they can reevaluate. But yeah, I would double down on both diet and training.
So it's a 50-50 thing.
I do have a specific question, Robert. I have this theory from what I've been researching. It might be a dumb theory, it might not, but like total body recomposition. I've heard that if you're a newbie weightlifting or a newbie exercising for the first time intensely, you can really transform your body and your focus on diet and food in a really fast period. Is that true, or is everything just going to take time?
No, there is definitely some science to the whole Newbie Gains philosophy. Because basically what's happening there is your body has not been subjected to that type of stimuli ever before. So when you subject it to that stimulus, having not ever been exposed to it, your body's going to become very responsive and adaptive to that. And you're going to see some pretty pronounced changes from a physiological standpoint in that lean muscle tissue gained and fat lost. Now, once you've been lifting for 5 years or more, your body is so familiar with those stimuli, any incremental gain going forward is much, much harder to get. You can still get it, but you're not going to get near the response in the short period of time that you did when you first start.
Mm-hmm. So it's how do you keep pushing yourself, because you've been working for more than 5 years, right? So are you still trying to grow or get more swole, or are you just trying to maintain it right now?
No, I've never really liked the maintenance philosophy, because I feel like we're not getting any younger. So if we're trying to maintain, we're getting worse, really. So I've always tried to get better. So yeah, like I'll not experience a massive 10, 15, 20 pound growth in muscle tissue in a year like I probably did during that first year, but that's okay, because any pound that I do put on of lean tissue, it looks more different on the body with that muscle maturity. Like every single time I compete, I only weigh a few pounds more than the last time, and I only compete every couple of years. But I look significantly different each time I compete because I have more muscle maturity, I have more shape, more symmetry, more proportion, and I'm able to just bring a better conditioning to the table because my body's been there before. It's able to get back to that point before, and I'm able to do so in a very healthy, sustainable way. So for me, it's all about the lifestyle. Like I love the act of training rigorously. I love the act of eating clean. And because I've fallen in love with the habit of it, it's very easy for me to just keep incrementally getting better little by little, year after year.
Wow. All right.
That's amazing. That's really cool.
Something I want, if you don't mind me asking, what do you know about memory gains?
Memory gains, like, so in the context of, say you work out for a while, then you stop working out completely, and then your body's ability to have muscle memory towards that and gain that muscle back. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so there is definitely a lot to be said. There's people that have taken a bunch of steroids, for instance, seen massive progress in the gym from taking steroids, performance-enhancing drugs. Then they'll get off the steroids, and then they'll lose some size initially, but they're able to maintain a lot of that simply because the muscle maturity and quote-unquote muscle memory is there. That's why it's not really fair for someone to take a bunch of steroids and then get off taking steroids and then compete as a natural bodybuilder, because it's still not putting them on a level playing field. But yeah, the body definitely is able to recognize that tissue has been there before and has put in that work before. Now you'll lose some, but you're able to regain that pretty quickly. And a lot of it is neurological as opposed to just physiological. So like simply being able to put in the repetitions and having proper form and function and technique in that training, your mind remembers that more so than your body.
Wow. So it's more of a mind. So your mind's already at a forward place. Your body just follows up to where your mind is.
Yeah.
Right? Pretty much because you've already done it. It's in your memory.
And that's just shows you that the mind is a powerful tool, right?
I wanna yeah, the mind is so, the mind over matter. Honestly, what do you have to say about that in terms of working out? Like, how much does the mentality play into it more than the physicality?
Oh, the mind is everything, man. Like people ask me about the physical sport of bodybuilding, and yeah, there's a lot of physical, aspects to it. Like you are physically demanding a lot of your body with the training and the sleep and the routine aspect, but it all comes down to the mind. Like if you're not in the right mental headspace to put your body through that in the first place, your body will never be able to do it. So like whenever I'm in a competition prep, for instance, I'm in a deficit, I'm dieting for 6 months out of the year, and I'm running on empty those last few weeks and months. It's my mind that pushes me through to the next level to reach that goal. It's not my body doing it, it's my mind.
Very nice. So yeah, so just having a strong mind, and that comes from motivation. How we're just talking about this thing, motivation. How do you get motivated? How do you train that mind to get that strong?
Motivation is fleeting, man. Motivation is very fleeting. You can watch a video and get psyched up as hell and go to the gym and feel like $1 million, but that's not going to keep you going for the next 20 years. Discipline is what comes in there. So making those routines, making that habit, having that discipline, and knowing what your underlying why and reason for doing this in the first place is, and making that very, very strong and foundational is key. I'm passionate about doing what I'm doing because it's not just about me anymore. Like I've been able to help a lot of people turn their life and their health around, and they find inspiration from me and they find education from me and they follow my content. And that to me acts as a massive accountability factor. I feel like if I was to just throw it all away, then that would be a very selfish act because I'd be letting those people down. So having them in my corner helps with that discipline as well.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's
really is amazing.
We hit a timestamp, by the way. I should.
Yes. I do want to ask a little more about inspiring people. So there are people definitely out there right now who are like, I don't have the time to go to the gym, or like, I don't like working out, or if you're muscular, you must be a meathead and you're stupid. Some people think that.
That's not me.
What do you have to say to all these kinds of people who aren't
motivated to go to the gym and work out, or if they are, they're thinking of quitting very, very soon?
All right. I'll say from my experience before we go that before I was working out, I just felt a little more cluttered. I felt a little more hazy. I was more tired. I didn't feel the energy and the happiness. I just feel really happy right now and the joy of it. And now that it's been a couple months, and I do feel my life's just psychologically, I feel so much better. So that's why I definitely recommend it. But I don't know about you, Robert. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting that everybody be a bodybuilder by any means. I mean, simply moving the body and subjecting it to some type of stimuli, engaging the muscle tissue, that's all very important from a health and longevity standpoint. That's going to leave you around to be there for your family and friends and loved ones for much longer. I mean, like training, resistance training, and a proper diet is the fountain of youth that allows you to live a fulfilling life for as long a period of time with that health span, not just lifespan, but health span. As far as, people that have little time to devote to training, it doesn't have to be a 3-hour-long task. I mean, I had one guy that was working for me, and he trains exclusively and has for the past 11 years with resistance bands and bodyweight exercises. And he has 5 kids, and he does all of his training early in the morning in a 30-minute window before he goes to work. And he looks amazing. He's very healthy. So I don't really like the whole time standpoint. A lot of people say they don't have time to work out, and they spend 3 hours watching Netflix every night. Like, there's bullshit there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Damn, Robert Savage.
And even it is bullshit. And you can always, wake up in the middle of your sleep and go to the gym. I've been doing it. Yes, I hate my life, but hey, I won't in a few months, right?
Yeah, right? Let's go.
Anyway,
before we go anywhere, I just want to ask one more thing.
Go ahead,
Robert. So you were talking about building that consistency and that pattern for being motivated, so that becomes a lifestyle. What is the micromanagement tasks that you would do or suggest to people that they should do so that they can build that pattern for themselves, that lifestyle and that consistency, so they don't give up?
Well, for me, it's been having certain non-negotiables in my life. Like, there's certain things that I just do not allow to distract me from the trajectory that I want to head on to. So I have every single year, I don't do a New Year's resolution. I do a New Year's manifesto. And that manifesto becomes the theme of the year that I adhere to throughout the year. So this year is all about doing more 365 Savage is what I called it. And I committed to doing 6 simple things every single day as non-negotiables that I do not deviate from. And for me, it's easier if I do those things in the morning hours before any distractions come in. I mean, if you put forth a long, hard day's work and you've got, relationship, you've got, interactions with your coworkers, whatever the distractions may be, it's much, much harder to go from that to find the motivation to go to the gym. But if you have certain non-negotiables and you commit to doing them before any distractions take place, you're significantly more likely to adhere to them. So knowing what your non-negotiables are and then not allowing yourself the ability to not make that a priority, committing to it wholeheartedly is absolutely key.
Well,
wow, amazing. Yes.
Very well said.
This was amazing, Robert. This is really amazing.
Yeah, appreciate
it. The show.
Thank you very much for watching another episode of to the Show. If you guys enjoyed this episode half as much as we enjoyed filming it for you, please like, subscribe, and share. We will leave a link to Robert's social media in the description below. Go follow him. Let him know we sent you there. Robert, is there anything you'd like to shout out or let the world know?
Man, I just appreciate y'all doing this. I mean, where are y'all located right now? You said Arabia?
Yep.
You?
And I'm in
Lebanon.
Los Angeles. Yeah,
Lebanon. Said's in Lebanon. I'm in Kuwait right now, which is next to Saudi Arabia.
So it's cool for me to be able to just simply meet people around the world and see what their take is on certain things. So I just appreciate y'all for doing what you're doing. Bringing people. There's so much division in the world right now. So bringing people together of differing backgrounds and beliefs and just having a conversation. I mean, I appreciate y'all for doing this.
Let's do it.
Appreciate you for doing
the
what
show.
You do.
Thank you, Robert.
We'll
the most
see you
international, the most diverse, most awesome, educational, entertainment podcast. Hey, before we wrap up, I do want to say, for me, what really helped me get into fitness was education, was learning about the things. I feel like a lot of people don't even know how to do any muscle movements or what it takes to get a muscle to grow. What does it mean for a muscle to grow? So learn, follow Robert because he has all the information. And you can learn from him and learn from other people also. See how I did that?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
let's go.
For me, he's more there, right? So peace, love, happiness, and we will see you.
Take care.